Welcome to the Shema podcast, the podcast for the perplexed, where Torah insights, intertwined through personal stories, as well as interviews with leading Torah scholars, demonstrate the empowering qualities of Torah and mitzvot. For more great Torah learning through Torch, the Torah Outreach Center of Houston, go to torchweb.org. Now to the show.
Sometimes I feel like I'm running in the world on my own, down and out, please help, I need you. My heart aches, I can't take it, no. I know that you're here right now, but you hide your face, I can't wait to see you. My God, I seek you. I know that I'm imperfect, but I know that it hurts when in my life I don't feel you. I become another person, it ain't worth it, no. Fix me, only give me what I need to proceed to the place I should be. Open up the gates and make them wait on me. God, please help me, 'cause I'm low and falling down, and I need you to pull me out, 'cause I just wanna grow, yeah. And I want you to take control, yeah. And have mercy on me. Will you pick me up again? Will you pull me closer in, 'cause I just wanna know,
Welcome back to the Shema podcast. I have a very special episode for all of you today. And I want to begin with why I have this amazing guest on with us. Many of you know I started this podcast this year because as I was beginning this journey that started many years ago to learn Torah and to live Torah, I had the remarkable opportunity several years in of meeting these amazing rabbis from Torch and learning from them. And I wanted to share them with you, answer my questions with you listening, share all my struggles as well so we can learn together and grow. And the guest that I am so grateful for that we have on is someone that I have found for years now to be a source of inspiration. But I want to back up a little bit. I used to listen to music as I started becoming religious simply when I was working out in the morning. And what I realized one day was I was listening to a song and I heard some lyrics that I found very questionable. And I went back and looked at the lyrics on the iPhone and realized this was the biggest heresy. It was a total desecration of Hashem. I freaked out. I pulled the headphones out of my ear and I swore music off. I was like, I don't want to listen to music anymore. I don't trust what's going to be entering into my ears, entering into my gates. But a problem sort of just surfaced after a while, and that was as I was working out, I was listening to podcasts, Jewish podcasts, like Rabbi Wolbe's Parsha podcast and Jewish history and Rabbi Ari Wolbe's Musar podcast. Now my soul is delighted. My body is furious with me because it's telling me, hey, Dan, you're waking me up at 5 a.m. and I need something more to get myself going. And I began this quest to find some kosher music. And I came across a video of a man named Nissim Black. And I remembered this individual. I remember reading about him around 10 years ago, right when I learned the truth about Torah and began my studies, of how he converted to Judaism, going from a lifestyle that was totally different from Torah observant Judaism to one that is. And I found that to be so inspiring. And I remember learning about how his rabbis wanted him to take his music that he was doing before he became a Jew to with him as a Jew. And I was looking at this video and realized, like, he did it. This is amazing. And I downloaded all his music on my playlist, and that's what I've been listening to every morning. And it was like now I gave something that my soul wanted, my body wanted. It was like a peace treaty that I had something that would make them both rejoice. And I wanted to bring this gentleman on. I thought, he's too busy. There's no way I could get him to come on the show. But as I was sitting down, writing an email to the management team at his website, I was listening to Think Torah podcast with Aaron Woolgenlenter, and he was interviewing Eli Goldsmith, who announces that he is the booking manager for Nissim. And so here we are. Nissim, welcome to the Shema podcast. I'm so delighted that you're here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the introduction. That was beautiful.
Thank God. I got to learn something new also.
I'm telling you, you seriously, I had this big internal battle, and your music alleviated it, and now my soul and my body are happy because of it.
Amazing.
I want to start with something because, I've been through this process where I was a secular Jew, total atheist, age of 40, going through this process, learning Torah. We just moved to a community 4 months ago, and now my wife and daughter are going through a conversion.
Wow.
And you've been through this conversion process, and I wanted to learn a little more about your spiritual fathers and how they guided you and brought you through that process.
That's a very, very beautiful way to put it. To be honest, it was very, very hard in the beginning. We had no spiritual fathers except for the Father himself. We had started our journey after being in a very dark place. Obviously, my relationship with hip hop was one of, more gangster music and which sort of led to a certain lifestyle. After being in such a dark place and really sort of hitting a place of rock bottom, I started to search, and I had already been very familiar with Christianity and Islam and different things like that. But I wanted to know more about Judaism because I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. I knew that Judaism was a foundation for the Bible itself, or the Christian Bible. So, I started to dig a little deeper. And the more and more that I dug, I started to feel a little bit more connected to the story, seeing the beautiful story between Hashem, God, and the Jewish people, and seeing that relationship of them constantly falling and never able to rise to what they were supposed to be, and falling again, and God saying that no matter what, I'm going to take you back. It didn't come without some rebuke, but it definitely was everything depends on it. When we look towards the future and what the future redemption is going to be like, there's many promises and one of the main promises is restoration of that relationship on the highest level. So reading this as a non-Jew definitely inspired me. So, what was guiding me during this time, I had nobody to talk to. There was no friend and no rabbi or anything. It just really took a lot of prayer, and me looking at the story of the Avos, looking at Avram Avinu was my inspiration, and Yaakov Avinu, and David HaMelech, so that really guided me for a long time. And so it took me maybe a couple years or 2-3 years before I was in a proper community and able to have guidance from rabbis.
Amazing. That's exactly my story. I was by myself using books and internet, and it was, of course, made a difference when you find some people in your life. Now, let me ask you this. Right. One of the challenges I had is I had this old persona myself, like in the business world, like everyone knew. I was the guy that the CEO would bring me out to a conference to be the guy to take the guys out partying. And it would be on the weekend too. Eventually I had to sit there and say, okay, I don't travel anymore on Shabbos, and here's why. But when I would go out, when they would bring me these events, everyone knew this old Dan that I wanted to go away. The Dan that would talk inappropriately, make jokes. I was the guy that they expected to take him to a strip joint. And I just wanted to say, like, that guy is dead, and I have to, introduce this new version of myself. And it was like this while there I was like struggling with that. And I'm sure with your career, going from rap with the lyrics that were probably much different than what your lyrics are now. Talk a little bit about how you made that transition. I think everyone sort of goes through that at some point.
No, it's very true. That is a internal battle that is just, it really takes God to be able to overcome it, because there's so many things in your mind about other people's perception. How are they going to see me? What are people going to think? That type of thing. I think the advantage that I had was that right before I started my journey, I'd already moved out of my, a neighborhood that I grew up in. I was living alone for the first time. My girlfriend, who actually is my wife now, Baruch Hashem, we've been together, me and my wife, since I was 17 years old, high school sweethearts. So we have finally, gotten away. And being away from everybody sort of helped me be able to have a lot of those things just only in my mind without having to interact with people, just because I pulled myself out of the environment. But I would definitely say that struggle is one of the most realest struggles that a person could possibly have. I remember, I was maybe I'm going to say this was in 2008 or whatever, I was about 13 or 14 songs, I think, into a project, something like that, into a brand new album. And all of a sudden I have this transformation, change of heart. I'm starting to learn. I'm praying more. And I wasn't just praying. I was fasting. I was going 3 days with no food, going out crying, begging God for answers. You know what I'm saying? I'm begging Hashem really for answers. What are the, you know? And I was really devoting myself to this, 8 hours a day between the learning and going through all the different texts and going out praying and crying and everything else. And what was interesting was, going, being, that many songs into a project, I went in because I still had concerts, at this time, and I recorded all brand new songs. I scrapped everything I had before I recorded brand new songs because I was so eager to erase the old me. I was so eager to, to not go back out and be known as that person anymore, which I think is a very, very necessary part of growth, you know what I mean? And then later on, we may find that there were beautiful elements or things that we were given to be able to enhance our Yiddishkeit, to enhance others and to inspire them. But it's a very necessary point to sort of Sumei Ra, as it says, David HaMelech says, Sumei Ra Aseh Tov, where you're running, fleeing from evil in order to do good. And the heart naturally wants to do that once you've had such an encounter with God and with the truth.
Now, was it difficult to transform your music from the rap and lyrics that you did in your previous life and transforming that to now where your music is all in the honor of Hashem and your Judaism? Talk about that a little bit.
So I would say I didn't find it as challenging for two reasons. Reason number one is because, as a person changes, it's much easier to be authentic to yourself. Just it's a natural thing. If a person is already accustomed to being themselves. So when I started making records more from a, whether, faith standpoint or whatever, it was just already who I was. These were the conversations I was having outside of music, so it was much easier. Same thing with swearing. I haven't said a swear word since 2008, so it was very easy for me to not swear on music because I stopped swearing in my daily life. The second reason I would say is because I think God just gave me a natural gift to be a musical chameleon. I've been asked many different times, I just made a song with Shlomo Katz. Hopefully that's going to come out soon. I'm working on another one with Zusha. Other, Jewish singers that sound nothing like me, but these are singers I'm listening to. People ask me, well, how do you make that work? I'm a musical chameleon. There's no genre, there's no nothing that I don't feel like I can't get myself into a place to where I can do it. So I sort of been blessed and gifted, in that regard.
That's amazing. Was the idea of taking your music with you, was that something that was accepted by the rabbis and those in your community? Were some pushing back on that as saying, well, that's because I know one of my friends, Rabbi Cohen, my teacher, said that it used to be when someone would convert, they would say, leave all the goyish stuff behind. And he was sort of telling me no, that's it, because that's the wrong idea. Everyone wants to take what they get in the exile and elevate it and raise the sparks in it.
Right. Well, I think, it goes back to one of the, the other questions you said before, because with me, honestly, when I actually started my Geirus, I gave it up. Nobody told me I had to. I just felt inside that, this isn't the direction that I'm going in my life. And ultimately, my relationship with music, was probably unhealthy. It was not a means to something. It was the means within it of itself. It was, the end all for me. I love music so much. So for me, I remember even at that time, I sort of looked at it as a, this is my time to perform an Akedah, to sacrifice my beloved and only son. And if it's Hashem's will for it to come back, then it will come back. But as of right now, I was willing to throw it all away, and I did, and I left it for a few years. And to be honest, it was really great. Right around the end of that time, right before I would come back to music, the messages started coming very strong. I was supposed to. And I had rabbi support. People were telling me within the community. My wife started to support it. And it was good for me to take that break, though. I thought it was very necessary, and I still thank God today for it, because had I not done it, I don't know if I would have been able to be the strong person that I am right now. I was able to have a situation where I was able to change my relationship with music and use it basically as a key, as a vessel to be able to project what's going on inside, as opposed to it being, everything in and of itself. So, I didn't really get any pushback. As time has gone on, there's some people in some communities that were outside of the community. I was originally in Seattle that have had some pushback. But the biggest thing is, it's sort of like, well, music is a lot harder anyway, because like which Jewish music doesn't form from Goyish music? Like, if you look at Yuval and Bereshis, in Dalet, I think it's chapter 4 of Bereshis, verse 21, it talks about Yuval. Yuval is the one who created the first instruments, the harp and I think the lyre, whatever. So we understand that music and musical instruments in itself, its origins was in a place of tumah, of evil, right? And it says that it wasn't until Levi was born, right, who will go on to, his descendants will go on to be this musical soundtrack, so to speak, in the Beis Hamikdash, in the temple, that music was finally elevated, right? And then gone on to King David and all the beautiful things that were able to take place. King David actually before the Beis Hamikdash. But obviously, we see that music, the whole entire Jewish approach to music has always been to take that which is mundane and elevate it to Kedusha, So I think that is, I'm only acting in the same exact way as that, the Jewish approach has been. Mizrahi music sounds like the Mizrahi countries it comes from. Ashkenazi music sounds like the Ashkenazi music it comes from, and so forth, and so forth. So I just happen to come from, the inner city, so my music sounds like the inner city music, with a different tune.
Love it. Yeah, you're right. I mean, music is part of God's creation for a reason. When I started moving this community and I go to the shul, it's the first time to daven with the community, and there's the prayer and song is such a profound part of what we do on Shabbos. And it seems like that music is a means of communication that has a profound impact on our emotional state and our level of just overall connection with one another. When our words are synced up and there's similar rhythm and music involved, it seems like that's why there's a purpose for that. Can you speak to that at all? Probably much greater insight than me.
Absolutely. I would definitely say that there's no doubt about it that music, and one of the biggest things, this is also one of the biggest things that inspired me to come back to music, was understanding its spiritual power. It's very, very powerful. A lot of the prophets in the Bible were only able to reach their level of prophecy through music. The most prime example, of that is actually in Malachim and Kings, where it talks about Elisha, who had lost, because of his aggravation, he had lost his ability to prophesy. So he brought in musical instruments and instrumentalists to come in and play in order for him to receive his prophecy. So, which in Hasidic thought, music is also prophecy. So it's a very, very holy item, and we understand it can, and with that, it can also bring a person to the lowest places. So that's why it's a very, very sensitive item.
Right. Anything can be used, any tool can be used to bring people away from Hashem or bring them closer, for sure. So I appreciate that insight. Talk about Motherland Bounce.
For the motherland. Yeah, we gon' play it loud until they feel it, yeah, we gon' blow the roof up off the building, yeah, we gon' play that motherland bounce, check it out now, motherland bounce, check it out now, motherland bounce, we baba, black and get a shopping with a Sammy Davis cousin, tried to dodge the industry, but now my name is buzzing, they all saying that I'm conscious, I say that it's nonsense, so I say I've been on since on had an on switch from Seattle, the rainy city where my mom lived, in Jerusalem, that golden city that was conquered, but still we moving onward. Motherland conquest, smell me like an armpit. Yeah, we gon' play it loud until they feel it. Yeah, we gon' blow the roof up off the building. Yeah, we gon' play that motherland bounce. Check it out now, motherland bounce. Check it out now, motherland bounce. We baba. My mama told me that I read good. Been on my straight and narrow, but my history is the hood. Thank God today that we could buy a box of Cheerios or Kicks. I can even buy tricks. I'm no longer on WIC. EBT car rip in my passport lit. Stamped like a notary from every country that I went. Ain't a country like this from the others you've been sent. Black is beautiful. This gon' be the motherland hit. Yeah.
What's behind that song? What's the messaging there? What drove the inspiration to creating that song?
There's so many different things. Motherland Bounce, it came at a time where there were a few different things. There was this constant battle and struggle that I was having internally and externally. On one level, we were having some trouble getting our kids into school because of the color of our skin. Some of them, I just call it what it is, that there were, some gatekeepers. Generally, I would say overall, my experience inside the religious world has been one of love and acceptance and just, beautiful kindness, and that I've never even seen before in my life, But there have been some rotten apples, and some of those have been, with, us trying to get the kids into school. So we were facing, for the first time, some adversity in terms of, our skin color. Along with that, every time I was going to New York, every time I found myself in New York or somewhere in the United States, I get out of the airport and, there's people there and they start asking me, hold on, are you Jewish if you're black? And, these other come from African-American community, like asking me very serious questions, intense questions. And, and so I sort of wanted to make something that answered everybody's questions. You want to know how serious I am about my Judaism, about my Yiddishkeit? I'll show you. You want to know how serious I am about being happy about my color and who I am and where I come from? I will show you. And I think maybe what topped it off, most people would not like to know the inspiration came from there, but I think one of the biggest inspirations was I went to Reb Chaim Kanievsky, who's one of the leaders of the Jewish people, and his words, what he said to me was that your skin color is not your chisaron, that's not a lacking, that is your milah, that's your virtue. And so I wanted to sort of make something that answered everybody's question. And I wanted to be unapologetic about my Judaism. I wanted to be unapologetic about my skin color. And I wanted to be unapologetic about serving God. So that's why I said, I coined the phrase there that's become sort of my hashtag, and my team sort of ran with it, was God's man. Because that's sort of what I feel like, Hashem's ambassador in the world. And yes, I may check off a lot of minority boxes, right? But that's where we find God at the most, with the lowest of the lowest. The people that check all the boxes of being the lowest of the lowest, I check all those boxes. And what's my strength? My strength is that God is my strength. So that was really my message behind that song.
That's beautiful. It should be 100% of everyone in the Jewish community should be embracing you and not looking at that, but because it's obviously totally counter to everything that Torah teaches us.
Right. Absolutely. Absolute counter. But you know what? We have to accept that in every place in the world, and no matter where we go, that there will always be bad apples, right? And thank God, fortunately, that I've been able to say, not only for myself and other people that I know also color, is a minimal experience, to the being black and Jewish experience, a very, very minimal experience, and one that I don't think was so significant. Thank God my kids are in everywhere that they're supposed to be. I sort of look at these things and say it's a nisayon, it's a test and a hurdle of something to overcome, and I think we did very well. My kids are very happy. They have friends. I have kids of every color and every background in my house, every single week for Shabbos. I sort of wish it was a little bit more calm, but it's not. And Baruch Hashem, and we've had a wonderful and amazing experience. So one monkey don't stop the show.
That's exactly right. I love the line in the song, Hitler's worst nightmare. He's so Aryan, he thought of himself, Yamak Shemo, to be so great in his people, Now, what if the guy was Jewish and he was black? He would never be able to sleep, this guy. Right, exactly, which is why I love it. So good for you for making that song. Does your music resonate with the non-Jewish world?
Yeah, I think more recently, a lot of the new songs, I think from Motherland Bounce was sort of like the beginning of me rolling out a lot of other records that I've been sort of sitting on, or other ones that I created maybe even around the same time that I made a conscious decision to, move more sonically, I guess, from a musical standpoint, back into a space that I felt most comfortable in. Like I said, I can adapt and be a chameleon and jump into any space. But I think the best thing for me to have the success in terms of reaching the amount of people that I want to reach, that I have to do something that I'm very, very comfortable and at home in. So I think sonically, because the messages are now in a language that people can understand, even if they're not Jewish. You understand what I'm saying? So I think that because of that, it's definitely brought in a new influx of audience that is not Jewish or could be Jewish and not affiliated at all. And this has been a wonderful experience because I feel like right now more than ever I'm fulfilling my purpose. I definitely can't say that I didn't feel like it before, but it's like, it goes up levels and levels. You know what I mean? It's like this was a place that I knew I was supposed to be. I didn't know how it was going to happen. I was even scared of it happening, but I'm here now and ready to continue growing.
Fantastic. What I was going to add was that, the B'nai Noach movement is growing. And we don't proselytize, but the fact that you're taking the message of there being one God who is one and communicating it through that medium where you can reach everyone, I think is fantastic.
It's a very interesting thing on that because I tell you one day, a lot of these crazy stories I don't tell everybody, but the more and more I'm starting to speak about them because I think it's a major lacking of faith and emunah in God and the way that He operates in this generation because of the way that the world's gone, that we forget that God is a machadish. He can do whatever He wants at any time, and He can create new things all the time. I was once praying to God by the grave of the Lubavitcher Rebbe in New York, and one of the things I was praying about to Hashem, I was asking Him, I said, what, this rabbi and that rabbi that I've gone to talk to, everybody's pushing me, telling me, what, you need to go out, you need to take your message out to the world and reach to the ends of the earth, quit worrying about the Jewish religious community, go out and bring people from and so I was really struggling with that because although it was a comfortable space for me musically and technically, spiritually, I was afraid of it. And I didn't know, really, is this God, but is this really what you want from me? And so one of the times that I really struggled with it, I was at the grave of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and it happened to be that after I was crying my eyes out, so scared, so afraid, because I didn't want to be I didn't want to come out for like I'm proselytizing or any of these things. I went in and I sat down, and usually when I'm there, I never sit down in the lobby. Thank God that a lot of people know me, so sometimes when I go out to the lobby, a lot of pictures and snaps, so I really try to be as private and in and out as much as possible. But I was so exhausted from praying so hard. I went out and I sat down and I seen this video of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and he was speaking at that time how important it was to actively go out and spread Hashem's name and to create B'nai Noach, that everybody should know that Hashem is in the world, and how important during this generation, when everybody's not trying to kill us and everybody's not trying to, and we can have a power of influence, how dare we not spread God's name? And I promise you, it was happening right there in front of my eyes that I was like, God's like, using this video to speak to me. So with that, I also thought of it like this. We are called to be a priestly nation and to be a or lagoyim, a light to the nations. Here's the thing. If Hashem didn't care about the nations, then why would He need a light for them? It's because God really wants the nations. He wants that light to be spread to them. So therefore, He needs to leave a light on for them. So once I understood that, I've been running and I haven't stopped.
Absolutely. When I discovered your music 4 months ago and started listening to it, I started telling everyone in this community about it, and they're like, "Yeah, we know, Dan. We all know." Like you're like everyone here is a fan of yours. I think what you're doing is amazing. I wanted to thank you on behalf of all Klei Yisrael for joining us. Bring your music with you to the Jewish community and everything you do. You've been a great inspiration to all of us. I want to let you know, if you ever find yourself in Houston, Texas, I can speak on behalf of this community. You're always welcome here. We'll always make accommodations. I would tell you the shul I go to, who is so passionate with their singing, you would feel right at home. And I would like to ask you if you could give a blessing to the organization that I work with, Torch, the Torah Outreach Center of Houston. Our job through what the rabbis do is reaching out to Jews and non-Jews alike and spreading Hashem's Torah to them. And we would really appreciate if you could just give a blessing for their ongoing success.
I give you guys all a bracha for success, hatzlacha, and every single thing that you do. You should receive a holy das, holy knowledge and chokhmah, and Hashem should infuse you all with the ability and to be able to reach to the ends of the earth. Beautiful thing said by Reb Nachman of Breslov. He says that when one is able to ignite a light in those who are very far, the rechoking from Hashem, this is the greatest honor to God that anyone can possibly give. This is a very well-known thought, and a Hasidic thought also, that there's no higher way of coming closer to Hashem than what it takes to bring another Yid back to Hashem and to be able to spread His name in the places that it was never spread before. So I grant you all blessing that you should receive the highest keter, the highest crown in Shemayim, and Hashem should bless you with all the resources that you need, both physically and also spiritually, B'ezrat Hashem.
Thank you so much, Nissim, and may you continue to receive the blessings of tremendous amount of spiritual growth, success, and influence on the Jewish people for you and your family. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak with us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's my honor.
This is my love letter.
Thank you.
For heaven. When I'm in need, I look in your direction. I wrote her down so I can let you know. I'm holding on, won't ever let you go. Everything I tried wasn't working. I was down in the dark, then you saw I was hurting, and everything fell apart. Then you pulled me out from it, yeah. Gave me what to look to, yeah. I ain't never been the same, this is permanent change. They told me I was supposed to fall long ago, but they didn't know about that fire in my soul. God with me, God lift me, giving everything I have. Shake the haters in the hate, yeah. Moving on from the bad, moving on from the past. Game recognized game, put my heart on the platter, but it can't be contained. All the residue remains, giving glory to His name. Sunshine won't shine, this time make rain. This is my love letter, still for heaven. When I'm in need, I look in your direction. I wrote her down so I can let you know. I'm holding on, won't ever let you go. This is my love letter, still for heaven. When I'm in need, I look in your direction. I wrote her down so I can let you know. Yeah, I'm holding on, won't ever let you go. Yeah, I've been down, been hurt. More pain, more work. Life ain't what it seems if you don't know the word. I was really doing dirt, crying tears, strong fears, looking at my wife and kids, yeah. Look at what God did. Proud black, proud Yid. Ain't ashamed how I live. Promised land living, yeah. This is really what it is. Be me, you be you. Just keep it to the truth. Let go what they let go. Hold on to the you. This is my love letter, still for heaven. When I'm in need, I look in your direction. I wrote her down so I can let you know. I'm holding on, won't ever let you go. This is my love letter, still for heaven. When I'm in need, I look in your direction. I wrote her down so I can let you know. I'm holding on, won't ever let you go.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider supporting Torch so they can continue to spread Torah wisdom to the world by making a donation at torchweb.org and clicking donate in the top right corner of the page. And if you would like to get in contact with our host with comments, suggestions for future topics of learning, or questions for him or his guest rabbis, you may email him at president@torchweb.org.